The time now is 7:09. Now, if you haven't been at work for several weeks, today could be a bit of a shock to the system, as well as presenting concerns about safety. This is the day that more workers in England are supposed to be returning to work if they can't do their jobs from home. Manufacturing and construction firms in particular have been urged by the government to get back to work as long as social distancing can be maintained or other safety measures put in place. The Health and Safety Executive has threatened to prosecute companies that don't follow the guidance. We can talk first of all to Ben Hancock, who's Managing Director of Oscar Acoustics, which installs sound insulation on construction sites. Good morning.
Morning. Hi.
So what kind of measures have you taken in order to get your workers back to work?
We've spent weeks after the big Boris speech putting together safe working practices on building sites, which include sort of one person to a vehicle travelling to the sites. When on sites as well, sites have been split into zones so we can keep people apart. One-way systems in corridors, stairwells to help with the distancing. Sanitation as well, that's a big thing. So toilet attendants, one person in at a time, cleaning down between each person, enforcing hand washing, stuff like that. Even individual equipment, so colour coding, tools and scaffold towers so people aren't mixing them up.
It's going to be difficult, isn't it, though, for people who haven't been at work a while to be fully briefed on these kind of changes?
That's the worry. So we've put so much effort into it, and we've had Zoom meetings with all of our staff before they've gone onto site, running them through all the method statements. The worry is that lots more people are going to come back to work. Some did on Mondays, some are today, having not gone through all this with their employees, and they're coming onto these building sites and just sort of not understanding the new rules. So it's a concern.
And what kind of issues have the workers themselves been raising with you?
On the most part, actually, most have said that things are going well. A couple of them said when they first arrived on the sites that maybe social distancing was a bit of an issue, but we spoke to the site management straight away, and they've had a word with people, and it seems to be working okay now. It's that said, all these new people are going to be coming on site today, so we shall see. We're monitoring it closely.
I'm sure we are. Well, best of luck with all of that. Well, we can now talk to Dame Judith Hackitt, who's chair of the manufacturing trade group Make UK, former chief executive of the Health and Safety Executive. Good morning.
Good morning.
And listening to the kind of measures that Ben Hancock was taking there, presumably that those are the kind of questions, dilemmas, measures that are being taken by lots of people in manufacturing throughout the country.
Absolutely. And I think we should be clear that quite a lot of manufacturing industry has continued to work, albeit at reduced levels over the last few weeks. So as Ben was describing, this is very much about stepping things up and doing so in a controlled way so that we retain the levels of safety that people have learned to put in place over recent weeks and maintain that as the activity level increases. We've been supporting our members, offering them lots of advice, which they've found particularly useful. And of course, the HSE has been very much involved in providing the government advice.
And of course, lots of companies have been working, haven't they, but just not at full capacity.
Exactly. So this is very much, for many companies, about stepping up the pace, increasing the pace, and doing so carefully and in a very considered way so that safety is maintained.
And I suppose the riskier areas are maybe not necessarily when people are working, but when they're eating or gathering.
That's absolutely right. I think there are a number of measures that very clearly need to be thought through in terms of how the workplace is organised. And Ben talked about single file, single route through factories, also about putting up screens. All of those things in the workplace are important. But it is equally important to think about eating facilities, staggering times of arrival into the workplace, even going to a shift system where that's not been the case before in some places, so that people work, there are less people in the workplace at any given time. All of those things have been considered and are being deployed by different manufacturers in order to manage the risk.
And now the Health and Safety Executive, which of course you used to run, does have legal powers, doesn't it? But do you think that there are enough inspectors in place? This is something that we've heard on the programme, that there may not be enough people to be able to enforce the strict safety regulations.
The Health and Safety Executive is never operated by inspecting every workplace. They will look at those that they consider to be of the highest risk first. They will prioritise those, of course. And I think what we should also recognise is that whilst they will prosecute in the most extreme cases, they're also there to help and advise. And those people who want to do the right thing will benefit from their advice and guidance. It is those who try to avoid doing the right things who are the ones who will be prosecuted.
They are getting an extra £40 million. This is a report in the Financial Times. But the paper also points out this comes after cuts of 100 million in a decade.
I think the issue of funding is an important one. Of course, every organisation like HSE needs to be properly funded to do its role. But this is also about recognising that we all have a duty and have always had a duty to look after those who work for us and indeed those we work with. So this really is an issue where we can all help one another. And I think this is much more than being about doing what the rules tell us. It's actually about demonstrating that we care about one another and we're all going to look after one another in our workplaces, because it's really important that we get our economy going, and manufacturing has never been more important to the UK economy than it is now.
Dame Judith Hackitt, earlier Ben Hancock, thank you both.